Well, once again, the ultimate horror is sadness. So I watched all 9 episodes of The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is the follow up of the same crew who presented The Haunting of Hill House. Now, Haunting of Bly Manor is supposed to be based on the turn of the screw, and it more or less is. Some of the characters are there. The ending is not quite the same and all of that, but so it's basically a jumping off point, I suspect, as far as that goes. But it's not. It's no Haunting of Hill House. It just doesn't quite get there. And I'm not even sure it completely. I'm sure they tried, but it's. I think it's more of the of pursuing the idea that Hill House had presented, and you want to continue this as a series and say you've got this, and you really didn't. A lot of times, shows and whatnot that you'll see, and I think this kind of happened to American Horror Story, is just you're fascinated with the concept and idea of a story, but you never actually have the story. So here we have there's interesting moments, there's very strong performances. You do generally feel for the loss and sadness that these characters experience. It's heartbreaking and all that, and that's more or less what it is. They even absolutely say it at the end, that this isn't a ghost story, it's a love story. A doomed love story, that ends very sadly. And it's an acknowledgement that happily ever after is never true. One of you will go first, and the other one is left with sorrow and loneliness and sadness. So that's all fine and true, but it's a bit all over the place in some ways, and in others, and a bit of important elements that feel like they're shoehorned in. Even though it's acceptable of the origins of the curse of the manor, that comes in late in the series, and it's just all sort of done. And I don't know. Hill House had quite a good pacing and setup. It was very well mapped out, and that gut punch of when you discovered who the crooked-necked lady was. And boy, talk about it. Quite the gut punch that was. There's nothing really here like that. They do kind of give you your first big view of the mysterious Lady of the Lake, but even Lady of the Lake isn't really all that significant until the very end. And all that is just to tell you, oh, there's a reason why this particular manor has all these ghosts in it. And which it's fine, it does explain it and everything, but I just don't think it was mapped out as well as it could have been. And there are interesting aspects of it. Probably the more saving grace of it is really interesting is this display of how time is affected, or the experience of it is affected within the spirits or the ghosts. And then of course it's another one of these, who's a ghost and who isn't. And you find out this, and after a while you start, at the end you'll have to figure, well, this guy isn't and she isn't, but everybody else is. That sort of thing. And that's not all that much, and you see that in other films and shows and stuff too. But yeah, the display of time and it even alludes to what the experience of Alzheimer's must be, and that sort of thing. And that they do, they handle that very well, and there's clues to it before you get the episode for the character that's experiencing this. And that's pretty good. All the actors do their jobs well. The atmospherics of it is spot on. It looks good, but it just doesn't deliver. And especially, it's really hurt by being the follow-up to Hill House, because Hill House was so damn good. Even that one, I kind of felt like the ending sort of fizzled. This one, I can't say completely it fizzled. It just wasn't all together. And but basically you end with, oh gee, it's really sad. And that's about it. But you pretty much already knew that as it's going. In fact, the actual story they're detailing with you with this plot from one of the ghosts trying to get out, because once again it's one of these again like the murder house in American Horror Story. You're trapped in it. You die there, you're stuck. You can't leave the house. And this guy figures he can do it, although I don't know how he thought that or why, because it was already demonstrated. And so there's other things where there's also where it leads you to believe it's a haunting or a ghost when it's actually a display of a sort of mental illness brought on by a trauma. And there's two characters who go through this. There's the one character who appears to be haunted by her ex-fiance who died, and it's cool visuals and everything. And but it's really just a device that reveals her sexuality and this sort of thing, and that becomes sort of the platform for the relationship there that ends up being very sad at the end. But there's the other one, which is this guy who's there's the two children. He's the uncle, and he's left with them because their parents have died. There seems to be an insinuation that there was nefarious means by which their parents died, but it's never really quite stated, and nor is it explained how. There's some accident that happens on a trip elsewhere, and that's that. But it was nice to see Garth Marenghi again. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, fantastic show. Didn't last nearly long enough. You look it up if you haven't seen it. It's brilliant. But that's another. Anyway, he appears here briefly. Some of the attempts at British accents for people who were not actually British. Yeah, not doing so great on that one. But anyway, that element of it, of this character, he's haunted by his evil side, I guess. And is this really a personification of someone? Is it the spirit of his dead brother tormenting him? Is he dead? It seems to describe that he's trapped in his office and never leaves it. And this, no, he's spoiler, he's not dead. It's not. So I guess that's just it was a manifestation of his guilt, and it's kind of just there to throw you off, I suppose. But whatever. The core, once again, yes, they spell it out pretty much. The character tells you at the end that this was a love story, not a ghost story. It's a love story with ghosts, but it's all doomed love stories. And that's the ultimate fear, that the sadness will come, because ultimately all love stories are doomed, because even if you're happy together, you won't be, because one of you will more than likely go first, unless, of course, you both die in the same horrible accident or something, as did the parents of these children did. So, but it wasn't a perfect marriage, of course. But, and that's the outcome. So there's several relationships. It's not just the main a woman here in her relationship with this gardener she meets. There's several of them, and then we find out all the way at the beginning of what the curse was to the Weingard family in the distant past. That basically cursed the house, I guess, and out of the sheer will of this woman who died. And there's interesting means by which they display this, but by the time you get to it, you know what's going on. It's not a big surprise or anything. So I think this was a failure. There's obviously an attempt to try. It's not like this was a lazy work slapped together. I don't think that's the case, but it's just not a successful series as the previous one. Even take away the obvious mountain top they had to climb to overcome the previous one, which was so good. Even if that wasn't the case, it would still say, yeah, it's just not that good, and it's just too bad. So can't really recommend it. There's, like I said, there's moments and there's interesting stuff, but that's not enough to save it. So yeah. The Haunting of Bly Manor is no Haunting of Hill House, unfortunately. So, but I imagine they'll do another one, pick some story elsewhere, haunt some other house, and maybe they'll come up with an interesting means by which to tell that story. But they didn't quite find it for this one. Alright, thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you. You know, hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.